There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Increasing the block size to 32 megabytes right now. What would be the top 5 arguments that would get hurled against me?
Oh, that's a good one.
There are a few that the big blockers got right.
Ching, like all these coins splash into the wallets of all the winners. I love that.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 129, Listener Survey 2024. Today is Sunday, the 22nd of September, 2024. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jett is doing the producing and guest co-starring today. It is our yearly episode where we take a look at what you, the listeners, thought the BCH community needs. And it's been a while since we've had a nice no guest episode, and I've been really struggling to fit some of these other drama topics into the other episodes we've had recently. So I think this is going to be a bit more of a low-key one for the regulars, that we take a look at what's going on in the crypto scene. How you doing, Jett? What's the latest with you, man?
I'm doing good. The latest with me is not much. Still just working, probably too much. You know, I got a friend who's starting to do cool stuff. So he's like, "Do you want to help me on this?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Oh, but really?
I can't make that happen.
Sucked into it. Everyone wants to be part of it, like a startup, until you're a part of one, and then then your value just goes up. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's got experience. Like, he knows how it works. Let me ask him for help." They say, you know, the greatest power is saying no, right? Like, as soon as you have any relevant skills to basically anything, but especially software development, you just get flooded with people who are like, "I'll be the ideas guy." And you're like, so that means you're going to do nothing. I'm going to build it all. and then what are you going to do? Get your 50% for the idea or sales? The funny thing is they always want to do sales. And it's like, do you have any sales experience? No, they don't have any sales experience. But they're convinced their idea is so brilliant that they'll be able to sell it, but then they don't have to, because then they say, "Oh, you got to build it before I can sell it." And then, even though that's not how it works in the real world, it's the other way around. The salespeople sell all kinds of shit that you haven't built, and then are like, quick.
Thankfully, this time it isn't software related. It's actually for the video production stuff. But it's like, some of it's like to do with animation, and that's completely out of my wheelhouse. And yeah, I think I just don't really have the time to dedicate, unfortunately. I've already helped out like little bits and pieces, telling them like, here's the software stack that'll get you 90% of the way, and here's some cheap equipment that'll get you 90% of the way, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. The media tycoon. Handing out business advice from the lofty perch of BCH podcast production. I love it. Great. Well, that shows we must be doing something right then. Got credibility now. Damn, that's good to hear. All right, we got to get our quick little announcement in. We got to shill ourselves. This is what you really need to do when you have videos. The first thing you need to do is say, "Give us money." So we've got our FundMe.Cash is 80% complete. It needs 7 more BCH. I'm really hoping a couple of people can just chip in so I can stop shilling it at the start of every episode, because it sometimes makes me a bit uncomfortable. Like, we do have to fund the show somehow. But I'm like, God, I wish we could just crack on without it. But, you got to pay the bills. So what can you do? I got to say, there's been a lot of contributors so far, though, in the sense that the FundMe.Cash has actually seems to have opened the door to a lot of people who weren't able to use the Flip Starter,
Yeah,
because the plugin was a pain, and you could only do it with Electron Cash and stuff. Look, we got 24 donators already. Wow.
The Flipstarter plugin doesn't work on the Electron Cash mobile either, right? And I feel like most people...
I don't think so.
Yeah, I feel like most people, when they are scrolling through Telegram or whatever, they're on their phone, right? So if there's no easy way for someone on their phone to donate. That's a huge barrier already.
Yeah, and once we get this Cash Connect stuff or Wallet Connect better integrated into Selene, I'm sure it's coming in Zapit and Paytaka at some point. If it isn't already in there, then that's just gonna be huge. This kind of stuff takes like so long to cook. I remember we were talking probably a year and a half ago about this kind of stuff, right? Being like, this stuff's all going to come. There's going to be Wallet. Like now we have Wallet Connect, we have Cash Connect, even the version after it, but it still hasn't been rolled out everywhere. And these things just take so long, which is why people who think, oh, my coin is just going to pivot and catch up to your coin on feature X. It's like, no, you're not. It's going to take you 3.5 years to get that one feature if you dedicated all your resources to it, which you're not, and by then your competitor already has the next thing and the next thing, right? So it's just like people have a very hard time of understanding projects moving forward simultaneously. They sort of imagine in their mind like, oh, I can just everything else will freeze in time and we can catch up. It's like, no, to catch up you need to be going at the same speed and then faster than the other projects, which are usually or often bigger, better funded, more network effect, stronger foundations of tech, better marketing, more interesting to whales. Like there's so many reasons. But anyway, we're doing a pretty good job, I think, as BCH of hacking our way up through the leaderboard. But this is the same problem that we have just with the bigger coins than us, right?
Did you see there was, I think it's like Texas Capital, I posted about it in the Bitcoin Cash Telegram group. There was a dude who I, like 2 days ago, followed a bunch of Bitcoin cashers. He is a trader from what I understand. He has not put out any tweet that was like public support, but all of a sudden out of nowhere, he starts following a bunch of BCHers. There's people in his comments that are like, when he's like, what price charts are you looking at? They're like LTC and BCH. So there's definitely like outside eyes finally. And I think some of that is coming from like the conversations across the aisle kind of thing, which is nice. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to see. And I think it's about damn time.
Yeah, it is. But momentum is rising. That's for sure. I can't even keep up with the Telegram groups anymore. Like as obsessed as I am, for quite a long time, I was able to stay on top of all of it. And even if I was just skimming past it, when I had a spare moment or something on those major groups. But now it's getting to the point, not only the actual main BCH channel, but even the podcast Telegram. A lot of the time I'm like, check my phone, there's like 80 new messages or something. And I'm like, wow, everyone's loving it. There's enough different. Yeah.
There's a threshold for me. It's like 50 new messages I'll catch up on. Anything more than that, I'm just like scrolling as fast.
Yeah. But I think that's just the sign of a growing ecosystem, right? Ultimately, we're not going to be able to keep up with like you already kind of can't, but as things get more and more and more crazy, it will be impossible. And for listeners of the show, they should be self-aware that this means the show is increasingly going to become my view of what's going on instead of, or I guess our view of what's going on, instead of like the authoritative story of what's happening. But there will be a solution to that, which is that there'll be more and more alternatives, which we're seeing, right? The BCH Foundation news is another fantastic one. And you can look on there and I see stuff in there that I'm surprised about, that I didn't know about. And sometimes I cover it on the show, sometimes I don't. More often I don't, because it's already redundant or it's what they're focusing on, not what we're focusing on, kind of thing. So, and there will be more and more channels cropping up that will all be paying attention to different parts of what's happening, So I think that's going to be a real phase shift for the BCH community that for several years has been quite insular, right? And everybody's felt like they had a good handle on it. But yeah, you just see new names popping up that you're like, I don't know with this guy, and he's coming in with how do I plug this into my app, or how do I do this? And then that's just cooking away. And then at some point I'm going to discover, oh wait, BCH is integrated over here, or we've got this new app is kicking off, or this new community of people have suddenly become really interested in BCH. So it needs to be like outward facing. We need to you just do a good job and you put it out there, and then the world comes and finds it, because at a certain point you can't keep up with the demand to proactively engage like one-on-one, really, right?
Yeah, I like the momentum. I like the pace of things now. It's nice that I can't keep up with stuff. I remember back in 2017 sitting in the Discord chat and like reading every channel and every message and trying to have it's nice that I don't. It's bigger than just, the 200 people that were there or something.
Yeah. You just learn to let go. The world is a very big place, and that's probably also where it's going to catch us by surprise too, I think, because that's the nature of an exponential. Like, you're on top of it until suddenly it just kind of slips away from you, and then whenever we suddenly just like, there'll be a moment, maybe in the next year, maybe in the next 2 years or something, where it's suddenly like some major conference is like, we're having a BCH not day maybe, but like a whole booth or something like this, and we'll be like, who is this? Like, why are they suddenly interested in BCH? Why is this now the top focus or a big focus of what they're doing? They're going to have a whole setup which is all like made by people that nobody's ever heard of, who are suddenly, billing themselves as BCH experts or something like that. It's going to happen. Yeah,
it's going to happen next year with like the Peitaka guys. They'll show up at another anime convention, and that convention will already have a BCH booth. And be like,
I'm looking forward to that. Shout out to Jomar and the team at Peitaka, because they've been posting. I love those photos. They post these. We've shown them on the show a couple of times, but they keep doing these different events they go to, and like, it looks really fun. They set up a whole booth and they're onboarding people at these not necessarily that crypto related events, right? But then people are just enjoying it because they're there and they're kind of in the spirit of it, right? They're shilling BCH obviously, but they're finding a way to make it a part of what's going on. I mean, ultimately that's how crypto wins, is it just becomes a kind of a side part of everything. It's like the internet, how, once upon a time, internet was for computer nerds, and then it was for video games and I guess porn, and then it kind of, over time, it suddenly just became everything. Social media, news, finance, like whatever, chatting
more
with your
porn.
friends. Yeah, more and more porn. Exactly. And it's the same with crypto or with BCH. It's just that's just how we're winning. But I think because I've now noticed that we're way over the event horizon as far as I'm concerned, in terms of like politics and stuff like that. Like, when was the last time you heard someone say, oh, is crypto going to be banned? Like, that was such a big FUD for more than a decade, right? But it's probably been at least a year. Like, anybody who said, is crypto going to be banned? Like, there wouldn't even need to be, no, it's not. You don't even need to say that now. Nobody's even asking that question.
I think there's still a little bit of that with like the US election coming up. Like, I see a little bit of that. People fear mongering about
Kamala's going to wreck us here.
But yeah, good luck.
What'd she do anyway? It's too late. She can't go to war with crypto. She's going to have too much on her plate, even if she wins.
They also have departments that hold crypto, right? So if the government banned it, they have their own mess to clean up before they start coming after the smaller fish.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think if it does feel like we've won in that sense. Obviously we haven't, there's still a lot of problems to go, but given that there was so many years of, Bitcoin's going to be banned, crypto's going to be banned, we're all going to blah blah blah, like that FUD persisted for years and years and years, even after it wasn't really that realistically viable. And now it's just over. It's because crypto's relentless. It just wins every day while people aren't watching. That's kind of the point. Okay, speaking of which, we got the price gone up a little bit. USD $341.45 for 100 megasats. So we're up slightly on the price. We're at rank 15, which is good. We've been in that 16 to 14 range for quite a while. If we can move out of that, that'd be good, but I'm not holding my breath. One BTC sat buys 185 BCH sats, so we're flat there. And one ETH buys 759 megasats. So we're down slightly. I just want to move on from this. We don't have, okay, I got to say, As we'll see in the listener survey, listeners are not loving the price section, so we might need to shorten it down. But let me tell you that the mempool.space BTC Explorer was reporting yesterday and today still that the backlog for blocks is under 100 blocks and fees have been 16 to 35 cents. All demand has just died on BTC because now it's all just op return tokens that people are trading, and actual demand, like they've just pushed away demand so many times that the market is just learning, don't transact on BTC. It's going to be a marketing coin, as Imaginary Username always says, and that's it. And they've pushed it away so many times. So I'm feeling increasingly validated or encouraged about my prediction that there's not going to be a mega super cycle, or even there'll be some bull run, but it won't be that big. And everyone's just going to be like, what's going on? And it'll be like, this isn't used for nobody cares. Everybody has moved on to other coins, and the other coins on their own don't have enough momentum to really build a whole surge yet. But maybe by next cycle they will,
I'm curious what the deal is with like LN. Was there any reason why like the network capacity just fucking plummeted all of a sudden?
That was apparently fake news. I tweeted this week about Joel Valenzuela, Satoshi bless him, was out there slandering the Lightning Network with like this graph that showed that somebody had just basically rugged a lot of their liquidity, because you've got to have the coins in there to transact it, which is one of the problems of it. And then it just went from 5,000 BTC down to like 2,000 or something. It was this huge drop. And I retweeted it saying, well, it's dying, obviously. And then some people came in the comments and said, oh, this is fake news. Like they had some other stats site which showed that it was different. But then I wasn't sure what to believe, because this site was obviously made by BTC people. It wasn't like a hater site that was made to show the Lightning Network sucked. It was literally them trying to get their own stats. So their stats might have been wrong, or it might have been the other way around, that the stats were right and the other sites hadn't caught up yet and figured out that the liquidity had dropped. So I was not sure whether maybe that was fake news.
Okay.
But either way, I felt vindicated, because I was like, well, it's going to die. Maybe it hasn't just yet, but this is it's going anyway.
I think the original graph came from bitcoin.com, because I saw later.
That I don't think so. No, it was some lightningstats.com or something like that.
Yeah, but so graph comes from website, bitcoin.com puts out an article about it. Then Joel takes the article, screenshot of the graph, puts out a tweet. Because I saw Corbin like follow up with Joel's tweet and be like, come on, not even a little
credit, like reference. Yeah. It's from bitcoinvisuals.com, which honestly looks like one of those most maximalist things. Lightning Network, height, difficulty, Bitcoin node, Bitcoin D. I'm not seeing anything here about the Puel multiple. They've got a bit of chart hocus pocus here. Like, I'm not seeing much about BCH or any other coin. I think this is just, I'm pretty convinced that basically this wasn't like deliberate FUD. Maybe it was unintentional FUD.
Yeah. So the reason I bring this up was because where are the users going? Because my thought was like, okay, they're actually using LN. Like they're actually, keeping up with their word. And especially with that clip.
Of course I'm sorry.
Especially with the clip of Trump like trying to buy a burger or whatever.
Oh man. I didn't even watch that. I was just like, I don't have time for this. Trump failing with Lightning Network and just embarrassing the whole crypto space, because the BTC guys, like it's like how big can the hoax get? It's coming apart in front of everyone's eyes at this point. We did the hoax video, like 2 months ago, and they're still trying it, but they're trying it to an audience that's just going over like a lead balloon now, because it's just like, it doesn't work, bro. You're telling us this is the future. It fucking doesn't work. You can't make it work for 10 seconds for the president of the United States or former president. What's going on here, right?
Yeah. At the end, he's like, oh, did it go through? Like there's no
sure.
Yeah.
There's no resolution.
Yeah. And we just need, like, okay, now that we have this really influential guy who has a visual example of what the user experience is like to a complete newcomer, give him Celine, have the same experience, and I bet he'll do a little dance at the end. Like,
I love his dances as well. To Trump, what a guy! Like, he's been, this big businessman in New York City for his whole life, or something like that. You think he would have like picked up, a few slick moves in there somewhere, right? He's always at these celebrity parties and like whatever, but he just has them. It's like, it's kind of adorable. I got to be honest. I laugh every time I see it. It's so unique too. Nobody, who else does that? It's like the Trump dance, right? Nobody else has ever pioneered that dance. It's like Beyonce, the Trump version, There's a bit less like hips, and there's a bit, he's put it in the hands instead. Single ladies, it needs to be like single, I don't know. Single sentence. Yeah. Right. Well, on this theme of disinformation, we've had a bit of Bitcoin hijacking still underway recently. Greg Maxwell, who is, of course, one of the most known saboteurs of Bitcoin and Blockstream co-founder and so forth, suddenly cropped up on Reddit petitioning the admins to get control of r/BitcoinXT, and was granted sole control, which he then made one of his mates a moderator. His version of events is that he's interested in preserving history, which is really his way of saying he's going to enforce the censorship and propaganda narrative there like everywhere else. Of course, this is a fairly small sub, although I found I was subscribed to it, and I've not looked at it in forever, but I must have been subscribed since 2017 or whatever, right? 2016. And 17,000 subs, and he's no doubt busy purging and getting rid of whatever unflattering information there. Now, this BitcoinXT sub is not the most central communication platform for the BCH community anymore. But the fact that this is what he's, coming out of the woodwork to spend his time on just goes to show that the hijacking attempts it's just relentless, isn't it? It's just, when are they ever going to fuck off? Like, that they're not. They're going to keep trying this propaganda and just any way they can, right?
Yeah, I can't see Greg specifically ever not doing this. Like, even if at some point he's completely outside of cryptocurrency, he'll just be doing the same Wikipedia shenanigans that he was doing 20 years ago.
Yeah. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But it's just another reminder to the community: don't trust, verify. Until we are the global reserve currency, it's going to keep it. We already saw it with the RBTC thing a couple months ago, right? Now we've got this. It is literally relentless. Anybody who reads Hijacking Bitcoin and then thinks, yeah, okay, I checked the references, everything checks out, but I'm still not sure. You can still see it happening today in front of your very eyes, I think. So, I mean, yeah, it's just another reminder to stay alert, and something that the community needs to be aware of. But luckily now, yeah, conversation has diversified into all these other channels, and that's the way it should be, right? That's the way you resist a censorship attack, is you route around it with enough other alternative channels. And the bigger the community grows, like I said, the more of those channels will pop up, and they'll distribute across different platforms with slightly different subscribers, and people will be paying attention to different things. The important information still gets to everyone, but it's just harder and harder to stop, right?
Yeah, I'm not concerned at all about like censorship at this point. I feel like the communication channels are pretty well managed by, well, people that have been involved for 7 years now. So I think we got a good foothold on the things that are important to like progressing. The only thing I do I'm concerned a little bit about here is like, yeah, losing the history. I don't trust for a second that this won't be an attempt to rewrite the history rather than preserve it. So I do.
Well, I guess, like there's been suggested, guys, we should make an archive and have a historical repository and all that stuff. Like, one reason to do this show is that it creates, another historical reference that people can go back to. So it's pretty hard to rewrite the narrative if you can just go, look, here's in 2021 where we were explaining that blah, 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 all the stuff you did. But yeah, there's always going to be attempts to hide and get rid of that. But I think it's one of those things that the community would love to do, but we just don't have the bandwidth. Like somebody/someone can come along and do that if they're really passionate about Bitcoin history and everything. That, we've done what we can with the podcast, and there's other people out there who've done great articles with compilations. And if somebody actually just went and archived all of that and found a way to distribute it on IPFS or whatever, it would be awesome. Somebody who's a real history buff would absolutely love that if you had the time to do that. But yeah, otherwise it's going to get slowly erased.
Yeah. I mean, even with the, this is a bit of foreshadowing for the audience here, but even with this podcast, if we don't get to something, the week that we see it, maybe tweets get deleted.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just well, that's why I put all the screenshots on the slide usually, right? For that very reason, which is that, I mean, you might just have to trust us, bro, if the tweets have been deleted, but they were there, and we weren't inventing them at the time, so it kind of rests on our credibility. But it is what it is. Although there's a certain extent though to which history is always rewritten. Like it's like a sieve that information just goes through, and the most important things retain relevance, and a lot of the other stuff, like for crypto nerds who want to dig into all this, they can find it out. But today, if you learn about BCH, as soon as you get the idea, okay, it was hijacked, there was some censorship, and the narrative got changed, do you really need to go and read the 500th post? Although, on that point, though, to be fair, I've had several people say to me that they sort of switched from BTC to BCH, especially a couple recently, that it was because they looked back at some old posts and they saw the difference in how the BTC community was talking about Bitcoin. And I think especially as things go off the rails in the BTC community, where they're now they're just fully captured. They're like, we've got the banks, we've got big money coming in, Michael Saylor's a hero, never spend your Bitcoin, hodl, we're going to the moon, $10 trillion. That was already the case, but that's just become the only narrative. Anybody trying to do anything else is just marginalized. And slowly some of those people are realizing wait, this wasn't what we signed up with. How did we get here over the last 6 years?
I think some of these people did sign up for that. They just didn't realize it at the time. They didn't know what they were signing up for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was just that the BCH community could see the trajectory and they just couldn't. Sometimes people are sitting. It's like that meme. I love that meme of the guy standing next to the waterfall and he says, "Hey guys, watch out for the waterfall." And the people in the boats that are going over the waterfall are like, "Fucking conspiracy theorists. Where's your tinfoil hat, bro?" Oh, if there was a waterfall, we would have seen it. And that's just exactly what it is. But he's just standing on the shore watching as they all fall to their death. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Okay, speaking of falling to your death, community comment of the week comes from BCH Autist.
What a transition.
Yes, December 23, 2023. Quote, in a discussion with Hodler Nort, Mr. Hodl, and David F. Bailey of Bitcoin Magazine. So this was clearly in some debate with some BTC people. Quote, some of us Bcashers think that BSVers have infiltrated ranks of BTCers and may go for a fork. Their BSV ship is sinking and BCHers don't want them, and we're poor anyway. Maybe they also don't want us. So they went to BTC where there's plenty to plunder, end quote. And then quote tweeted this on September the 11th with quote, called it, smiley face, the fork is called Fractal Bitcoin, end quote. So it turns out that, of course, we've observed on this show that there was that whole segment of the BSV people that went into inscriptions and got really excited and are now actually apparently driving most of the traffic on BTC. But they just managed to completely wreck a functioning in quotation marks chain. Like BTC was doing fine for how it was, and they accelerated the demise so much. once they got in the back door, it's like those people who get into a house, they're squatting in a house and they just trash everything. It doesn't matter how nice the house is, doesn't matter how long it had been nice. As soon as they get through the front door, things just are way downhill, right? So there's this new thing now they've got called Fractal Bitcoin. So BSV is obviously wrecked and basically done. And then BTC is now also just completely useless and nobody really cares about. Even the digital gold stuff is done. So what they've done is they've launched a new split, basically. It's not a split though. It doesn't have the UTXO set, but they changed Bitcoin Core code a little bit to pre-mine 50% of the coins to themselves. They reactivated OpCat, I guess, to show that it could be done or whatever, and then made it merged mined with BTC. This is by the Unisat team, who are some of those BSV guys who are then in inscriptions. So they're going to crash land a third Bitcoin split, basically, right? They already did it. They split off to BCH. BCH initially didn't go so well. Now it's turning around, but they were a big part of why it sucked to begin with. Then they split off into BSV. That sucked, and they torpedoed that. Then they've kind of wrecked BTC a bit, and now they're gonna fuck up their own one on Fractal Bitcoin again.
So what's the economics of this? Like, the only reason this would work is because it's merge mined, right?
I think that they just know that they can't do an actual UTXO split. Like, the barrier is just too high, and they'll just be immediately poor because, one, nobody will care, and two, even if they did, everyone would just dump. So that their price would just go to zero, basically. So I think this is I don't know, what are they pre-mined 50% of the coins. So it's just going to be them trying to, like, it's just a scam. It's just a scam. But it's so funny that every time they get it wrong and they fuck up Bitcoin, they never learn. They never think, maybe we need to start listening to some guys who have a functioning Bitcoin, like the BCH community, or even the BTC community. To their credit, they were not going to take over the world with their 1 megabyte blocks, but for what it was doing okay. Michael Saylor could buy and sell. The community they had could trade a bit on Coinbase. Now it's barely even that, right?
Yeah. The Michael Saylor being able to buy and sell being a metric is hilarious. That got me off guard.
Well, he just bought a whole fresh stack. There was celebrations about him buying another. His average buy price I saw was $39,000 and something. So he's way in the money. But his strategy is just like, if the price goes up, buy more. If the price goes down, buy more. So it's just doing a dollar cost average, except with billions and billions of dollars. I don't know how he can even get as much money as he does. Like, surely at some point his ability to just scam more people is going to dry up, right? It has to. There's absolutely no way that he can perpetually get these funding rounds or sell off his stock or whatever to investors, right? When does it stop? When does he just like, I can't raise any more money to buy Bitcoin and put it in cold storage?
What do they do? Like, what does the company do? Where do they get all this money?
Company. Well, they don't make shit, right? Like, they were just a losing money company that made some kind of really crappy enterprise software that had a couple of customers or something like that. I don't know the details, but it's like, by now the BTC position is like 99 point something percent of all their economics, and just
shit.
The company is just like a shell for the scam. Like, that, I'm sure they still have some software. It's like the most thinly veiled front of all time, and that's why everyone was celebrating. Like, oh, we already got it on the stock exchange by basically MicroStrategy being a replacement bet, for BTC, buying BTC with your NASDAQ account or whatever. I mean, I always think that it was so well timed that you remember we did, was it episode 2 or episode 3? And we did Wall Street bets versus Wall Street, the GME stock thing. Like that was a turning point in financial history, that social media had got to a certain enough circulation in society that the hedge funds just, well, they ended up getting control back and rigging it again anyway. But they, you know, it was like Xerxes, you know, even a god can bleed. Like the hedge funds lost control there for a little bit, and it created a lot of the hype. I think it just set the tone for the decade of the 2020s being more sort of crypto and social media driven, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, now it's like I always see like the Wall Street Silver and Autism Capital folks on Twitter. Yeah. So I think there's definitely like a culture shift there. I wonder what Deep Fucking Value's doing.
He was going off again recently. You saw in the Roaring Kitty is his Twitter handle, which I didn't know about before, but he just hadn't posted in years, and then he came back and he did a couple of weird streams where he like hyped it all up, and then he came on stream and then did it like some couple of weird things. I don't know, had some ketchup or something like that. I can't remember what it was exactly, but he did some weird streams after posting, and everybody went ballistic, and then everyone was watching the GME price was going crazy. You know, everyone's like, is he buying? Is he selling? Oh no, our leader is back or whatever. I don't know how all that worked out. I didn't follow it closely enough. Let's have a look at the yearly to date chart. Yeah, so if you look at the yearly to date chart, right, GME has been $16 down to $10 from Jan to May, and then it spiked from $10 to $48. This must have been when he was hyping everyone up a couple of months ago. And then it crashed to $19 and then back up to $46, and it crashed because everyone was like, oh, if it gets to $80, he'll be a billionaire or something like that. So that was the narrative.
That's weird. Like, yeah, I mean, I support people making money, but to be like, yeah, I'm buying the stock so he can become a billionaire is weird.
Well, it was just a funny thing. Like it gave a narrative for people to jump on, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what's his name? Roaring Kitty lost 200 million today because the price went down $10. What balls of steel he has. And then, wow, it went back up and now he's just made 400 million in 24 hours or whatever, right? People love that kind of stuff. You can easily recirculate that on Reddit and write a fluff piece news article about it. And it just gives an emblematic figure for people to be like, oh, I understand that this GME stuff is, you know, there's real people making and losing money, basically. Anyway, that the BSV are gonna, that Fractal Bitcoin, that's not gonna last. That's not gonna be a thing at all. But just had to bring it up here because I thought, wow, this is crazy. Hats off to Bitcoin Cash Audist for correctly calling it. And I tried poking the BTC guys about it as well too. I pointed it out to Mr. Hoddle. I said, hey man, do you see this? Like, we called it yet again. And he was busy like in his fantasy land of like, nobody controls BTC. There's nothing we can do about them. They're just scammers, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but you could be smart about these things and like say, hey guys, these guys are trying to fuck up our coin. Let's like socially exclude them or something. But then it just comes back to, oh, BTC is decentralized. There's nothing anyone can do. What do you mean? Like this whole learned helplessness that they're in. Anyway, it is what it is. Things are going as expected over there. Okay, well then we've got the ETH community. Things are also falling apart for them too. We've got a clip here from BLISS where we can hear the Ethereum community begin to wonder if their L2-centric roadmap is actually that great of an idea after putting several years and all their chips on that bet. So let's have a listen here. What's the name of this guy? I can't remember what his name is, but anyway,
Max.
Contrarian guy, Max, that's his name. Max, contrarian guy in the ETH community. This was a couple of weeks ago now, but he sort of finally made some waves, broke through the narrative, got on Bankless to say this. Let's have a listen.
Engineering stack to tackle those things. Max, if part of your idea is that Ethereum is kind of, the roadmap has kind of gotten off course, I'm curious. I mean, you've been in the space for a long time. Like, when do you think that happened? Why? And like, how?
I think we've been searching for meaning and we found the wrong thing, basically, since the merge. The merge was kind of a huge sigh of relief among core devs. And we accomplished something amazing and huge. And then there was a letdown, adrenaline started to drop, and we kind of took a step back and then ended up coming back to the table and deciding on the wrong thing to prioritize. So I would say since the merge, we've been prioritizing. It's not that these changes are bad or that we shouldn't do these changes. It's that there's a finite amount of resources that we have as an ecosystem. There's only so many things we can work on. And I feel we're not prioritizing the right things.
Okay. And so like just for, since the merge, I would say, this is from my vantage point, but I want to make sure I understand what you mean. But like from my vantage point, the thing that Ethereum has prioritized is like making L2, blob space cheap, essentially making L2 transactions really cheap. And that was sort of like the main priority, getting blob space out the door, like proto-dank sharding, all of that has been the main priority since the merge. That, of course, has been successful from the perspective of now L2 fees are incredibly cheap. Is that the thing that you're pointing to and saying like, that's good, but it's just like not as important as other things? Is that what you mean when you say we've gotten off track?
Yeah, I think we've achieved that. And at the same time, because we waited so long to do other things, we have a completely centralized builder market. The relay market is looking incredibly centralized as well. We have a lot of areas that are becoming derelict because we have not given them attention. And so we've achieved one thing, which is making blob space really cheap, which, by the way, I think is a good thing for optimistic rollups more than it is for ZK rollups. And so I would call this part of the roadmap that we've done so far a optimistic L2 roadmap, not a ZK L2 roadmap. And it's certainly advantaged one more than the other. And so fees are actually cheaper on the optimistic side than they are on the ZK side right now, which is weird because ZK is a superior technology. So I think we've let ourselves be captured by people who, there's a core dev team that works at one L2. There's another guy who worked on 4844 who works at another optimistic L2. We're the ZK L2 people, and all this nowhere to be found. It's all optimistic L2 people pushing the roadmap in a direction that helps them.
Well, what does that sound like, eh? We've got the L2s, the core devs are being influenced. I think we've got a bit off track here, guys. How did that happen? We were all asleep at the wheel. It literally is just the BTC and BCH story re-emerging in the Ethereum community because, as we've explained on this show many times, the L1 is actually the way to go, but you need the UTXO model for that, which Ethereum doesn't have. So as a result, to cope with their account model limitations that they can't fundamentally change, they've shifted over to this L2 model, and then all the L2s have now been captured by investors and so forth. And all the traffic and network effect has spread onto those. And as a result, things have kind of fallen apart a bit. Obviously, the inflation is increasing once again because their grand plans for the merge and the burn that have not really gone exactly the way that they hoped. And Solana has been really putting the fear of God in them, basically. There's been more and more in the ETH community that you see the Solana a top 5 coin, the ETH price is not doing so well, and the Solana guys just say L1 everything. And even though that has its own problems for them, they've done good enough that they have started becoming a major issue that the ETH community has to really discuss. Like for a couple of years, there was all, these are just the ETH killers. It's just another ETH killer. Nothing's actually going to kill ETH. But Solana is no longer being talked about as one of the many ETH killers, but an actual threat, essentially. So Yeah, I think obviously crypto just has to fail on every single other option before it finally figures out Bcashers were right the whole time. But you can just see the same thing happening over and over and over again until people slowly learn these lessons, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know anything about Solana, but is that also going to, like, let's say ETH does kind of fizzle out here? I mean, I think it'll be harder for people to leave ETH than it would be like even Bitcoin maxis. Maybe not, though. It seems like they're less trouble. Okay, so let's say they all just migrate to Solana. What's to say, like, it's just going to happen again there, right?
Yeah. Well, probably. I mean, I'm not an expert in the Solana tech, but every time I look into it, it's like this has a lot of buzzwords in it, guys. And they have, I don't know exactly how it all works anyway. Like, it's not a UTXO chain, but it's also not really an EVM chain. Like, they have their own SVM or something, and I'm not sure how they changed it, but they kind of made it mostly compatible, but not entirely, I think. And they have some weird, like, 1 second blocks or something like that. And then Anatoly, who's the main guy, is like, no, we can just have blocks faster and faster until you hit like the speed of light at like 200 milliseconds or something. I'm like, how would this even work? Like, what kind of blockchain is having a block every 300 milliseconds? Like, doesn't that defeat the whole point of a blockchain where the block, extends over time so that you can package up transactions? But I mean, this just goes to show how I'm out of the loop on whatever it is they're doing. But their chain like goes down and they have to restart it. So clearly, 400 millisecond blocks is not the answer to everything, right? And they just have tons and tons of spam, basically people trading whatever these meme coins, which is fine. But I don't think it's anywhere near global reserve currency, and it's already just like drowning in its own tech issues.
What do you think is more likely? Like, do you think that Ethereum is actually getting like maliciously captured, or do you think that it's more of just like there's too much complexity and people don't know how to manage that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big sort of organized plot necessarily. I just think it's inevitable that the technical reality started out with the narrative of, we'll just scale on layer one, we'll just ignore these stupid Bitcoin maximalists, etc. Like Vitalik was like, no, I've got a better idea. They cracked on in that direction, and it seemed to work because the block size war slowed Bitcoin down, and then a lot of people migrated over to ETH just because they were fed up with all the infighting because it was the number two. So then they got loads of traction for that, but they mistook that for we're actually doing everything right. And then at a certain point, they got a bit stuck with how many block size raises and stuff they could do because they were on the account model. And then they kind of had to rewrite the narrative. Remember, they were going to do the beacon chain and like 64 shards or whatever. That all got sort of quietly like shelved because it was too much work, and the merge became, the thing that was going to save everyone, even though that didn't actually help scaling at all. And then, the burn was really exciting and everyone was excited about that. But the whole point, like, there's all this stuff that was like sounded good, but was not actually attacking the core problem. And so in the meantime, the free market doesn't wait for anyone, right? So everybody started cracking on with these L2s, and then the investors were like, oh, this is where the excitement is. So they put the money into the L2s, and then once the L2s had some more clout, that inevitably, attracted attention, attracted devs, and before too long, the L1 devs are thinking, you know what, let's make things a bit easier for L2s. L2s are sounding pretty good right now. And then, of course, that's what Bankless have been at the forefront of. It's exactly the same. It's like Peter McCormack being the voice of Sauron on the, what's it called? The mouth of Sauron. Was it the hand of Sauron or the mouth of Sauron? It's the mouth of Sauron, right?
I have no idea.
in the Lord of the Rings. Anyway, he's the voice of the regime, basically, right? And then it's the same thing with Bankless. Like they're like, oh, L2s are the best. Wow, we're doing so much better than these Bitcoin guys. Look, we've got this great ecosystem. And then here they are thinking, fuck, like, did we pick wrong? Are we going to have to change up the narrative and then memory hole, or somehow rework our opinions without looking like we just followed, like we didn't see this coming. I saw this coming. The BCH community saw this coming. Of course, we don't have a big enough voice for anyone to notice, but nevertheless, this kind of stuff's pretty predictable, right? So, yeah, I don't think it's a giant plot. I mean, they are somewhat. There is maybe a bit of a sort of plot and shenanigans with the Infura, who the company Infura and Consensus are those two companies that I think it's called Consensus, that run like MetaMask and a lot of the nodes. So there is a bit of like control going on there. And then they have the ETH Foundation has a huge fat stack of coins that now that it's staked, I guess they can just stay rich pretty much perpetually, right? So there's definitely elements of it going off the rails, but the whole L2 thing I think is bigger than that. It's just time couldn't wait around for these nonsensical plans, and so cloud drifted to L2s, and now the L2s are just basically parasiting off the L1, because at a certain point, and I think, did we mention this on the show? Maybe we did, or maybe we didn't get time, but there was one L2 that then split off. They were like, okay, we've got our own traction. Let's just, cut the cord, and we're just going to be our own L1 now, which cuts to what people are saying, where they're like, L2s is just somebody else's, it's just somebody else's layer one, right? Because the L2s eventually realize, what are we even getting out of all this? Like, we have to submit all our transactions and pay money to ETH to put it on the base layer. And the whole idea is that they will inherit, in quotation marks, the security. But that doesn't really matter if you just have one fucking centralized node, basically, the sequencer, which is packaging up all the transactions. At a certain point, you're like, why are we even running this like fast? Why don't we just get rid of that, save a lot of money, and none of our users are going to notice any difference? So what's the problem? Right?
Well, back to spreadsheets.
Yeah. But I think this is just something that we can all observe and see how the crypto community has lost its way. And you have, David Hoffman, my favorite midwit in all of crypto, sitting there with a puzzled look on his face, like, where did this all come from? But he's going to be absolutely shocked in a couple of years when he finds that BCH is rocketing up the leaderboard. But he will, of course, pretend that he never hated it. Or luckily, I'm going to have the Twitter receipts. So good luck to him with that. Looking forward to 2027. Okay. Next up in the crypto scene this week, we have Iggy Azalea and Eric Wall. So they were going to have this debate at Breakpoint, which is this Solana conference, on yesterday and the day before, the weekend. And I was giving my moral support to Eric because, we dissed him on this show, and he's somewhat of a, frenemy of the show. But I predicted on Twitter that he was going to get absolutely cleaned up by Iggy, and my reasoning was very simple, because the debate was, are meme coins a good or a bad thing? And Eric was taking the bad side. So he was, would try and argue, okay, we don't really need these, crypto should be serious and, change the world financial system and stuff. And Iggy is having her mother coin, which she basically just talks about ass a lot and just posts pictures of her behind and then generates hype that way, basically. And I thought that would just be just a crushing argument, basically, because if you have Iggy and Eric in high school, they're actually about the same age. Like, Iggy would have bullied the hell out of Eric in high school, and at the level they're communicating on about crypto, that's going to be the same dynamic, right? And that was actually how it played out. Like, they had some back and forth on Twitter, and it started out being looking like sort of manufactured drama. that they had created, and they were both saying, making claims about what the other one had said in DMs and stuff like that, and who knows what was actually said. And it seemed like a bit of manufactured drama to drive interest in the debate. But then it started to get actually kind of nasty. Like Iggy made this video, which she made a couple of them, where she was like reviewing clips of Eric talking in different crypto talks, and then Eric was retweeting them, but he was getting wrecked in these tweets, and he's now since deleted them, which is probably a good move, because it was pretty embarrassing for him, really, where Iggy was like basically just insulting him as this, stupid little crypto nerd, and making all these kind of sexualized like jokes. Like it was really brutal. I can't do it the same way she did it, but she said, like, can you imagine going on a date with this guy? With the clip of him playing, like explaining how Bitcoin is an organism that adapts to like whatever. And she was just like, I would shoot myself if I was on a date with this guy, kind of thing. And she had some other friend of hers there, like laughing along with her in a thick Australian accent. And it was just like, yeah, Eric wouldn't last 10 seconds in an Australian high school, but Iggy would have dominated in that environment. So that was basically the dynamic. Anyway, so Iggy is just wrecking Eric on Twitter. And if Eric can't win on Twitter, he's definitely not going to win in real life. But then the debate, which I was excited for because I was going to review it on this show, we've done debate reviews. But then it didn't even happen because Iggy got to Singapore to do this conference, and she like basically canceled the whole debate because she wanted to have like, I don't know, burlesque dances or something involved, where she was going to like prove her point in quotation marks that meme coins and just, random shit is more powerful by putting that into the debate, by having like dancers come up on stage or whatever and doing some twerking or something, to appeal to the lower end of the IQ segment. And then Eric, the organizers were like, yeah, that's a bit unfair to Eric or something. And so she said, okay, well, I'll ask Eric. And then Eric agreed to it because I guess he was like, yeah, actually, this would be pretty funny. And then in the end, she just said, okay. Then the organizers came back and said, this would be too viral. And it would basically make their whole conference look like a joke if this became the known thing from Breakpoint, was Iggy Azalea doing like striptease or something there, which would have been great. It would have got a lot of attention. They were right, or she was right, that it would have got a lot of attention. And she was like, well, my job is to get attention for my meme coin. That's the whole thing you asked me here to talk about. So I'm just proving the point. And then they said, no, you can't do that. And so then the whole thing ended up getting cancelled. So maybe they'll do a rerun or they'll find some other venue or something like that. And it seems like Iggy and Eric then they posted a photo like hugging as well. So they obviously met in Singapore and maybe smoothed it over a little bit. But yeah, I didn't realize until we were prepping this show that Eric had actually deleted some of those tweets of him getting absolutely wrecked. So anyway, Iggy Azalea has become the breakout star of crypto this year. On episode 118, we talked about her trying to debate Vitalik, which she lost pretty badly. But Eric's a different kettle of fish. She had his number, no problem. What did you make of it? I just think this is important because this is what crypto going mainstream really looks like, right? Someone like Iggy Azalea suddenly spending all day tweeting about meme coins to millions of followers, right? This is it. This is mass adoption.
Yeah, I don't really care. I don't have interest in pop music or like not like or this kind of genre drama. This isn't something I normally pay attention to, crypto or not. So I'm glad that like it's got more eyes on crypto, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I don't know. I feel like these things have a lot of weight and I kind of want them to be part of the historical record so that when people go back, like I was talking to someone about, we did that episode with Well, I did that. I don't think you were on it. We did the one with NFTs when Elon put out his NFT. You know, he made his tweet of NFT, it's verified, it's guaranteed, and the little spinning golden ball thing. And he made that on Twitter. And then suddenly it became like one of the top tweets of all time or something. And then that was like a huge moment that the world was kind of like, okay, crypto is here and it's real. It's not just, or even if it's a joke, that's elevated it out of the realms of dismissal and ignoring it and pretending it's going away. Like, joke was a bit of a step up, and that's the same thing here. Like, crypto is just going to crack on whatever you're doing. So whether it's Iggy Azalea getting unable to twerk on stage at a crypto conference or not, that's a lot more crypto than Iggy Azalea having no idea what crypto was, which she probably didn't 2 years ago, you know. All right, let's get on to the listener survey. So we got 22 responses, which I was a little bit disappointed in, honestly, because we had 44 responses the year before. So I guess only the hardcore wrote in this year. The show has grown, but clearly people were less interested in some of in filling out the surveys. I didn't make a big deal and advertise it, except announcing it on the show. And I do that deliberately because it means if you're not actively listening to the show, you won't know about it and you won't write in. But anyway, we had 22 responses, some of the same questions mostly, so we can compare to last year, and some fresh ones as well too, relative to the zeitgeist. So just to recap, last year, the big theme that we thought was BCH maximalism, right? That it seemed like the community had really united on like just a rising sense of BCH is the one coin and we're going to win that way, right?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into it. So question 1, did you complete the 2023 podcast survey last year? 14 answers out of 22 responses, 63.6% yes, no, 7 answers, 31.8%, and no, but I only started listening in the last year, so didn't know about it, 4.5%. So really, according to this, we only had one respondent who didn't do it last year. So it's basically the same set of people. All right, so yeah, basically the same set of people who've been listening to the show for a long time did the survey. And shout out to anyone who did. Actually, that's really cool of you. Relative to last year, where we had 27% of people who were only started listening in the last year and didn't know about it. This year, we've only got that one response, that 4.5%. Okay, I'm male. 19 responses, 86.4%. Female, 1 response, 4.5%. And none of your business, 2, 9.1%. So congratulations to our first ever self-identified female listener. I hope you're enjoying the show. But this is a small win, I feel like, because I think I said last year that the way we'll know the show is growing if we see a bigger diversity of demographics, right? If we start seeing a slice of female listeners appear, if we start seeing the spread of ages also diversify more, it was heavily in like 25 to 40. If we see that spread out more, that would also mean the show is growing, hitting a broader appeal. And I think that's a small sign that we're getting there, but it is still mostly guys. Okay, I'm in my, this is the age question, 20s, 3 responses, 13.6%, 30s, 7 responses, 31.8%, 40s, 4 responses, 18.2%, 50s, 4 responses, 18.2%, 70s, 1, 4.5%, none of your business, 3, 13.6%. So no teens, no preteens, but relative to last year, which was dominated by 30s and 40s, nearly 2/3 of respondents, this year we had 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s also grabbing a big slice of the pie. And also, yeah, a couple of people that didn't want to be identified. So Yeah, what do you make of these first few points here, Jett? Do you think we're seeing a little bit more demographic diversity in the show as it's growing?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see kind of like cross-platform stats compared with this too, because I think we are getting, especially with the shorts, like teenage viewers, but I don't think they're ever going to fill out a survey, right? It's just not.
True.
It's not. There's no dopamine that they get back from it. So
yeah, I guess.
But
I guess
this makes sense to me. I'm kind of surprised by the who's the 70-year-old or who are but
well, I think might be my boy Richard Mullins. Shout out to him.
Oh, okay.
If he's listening, but he was he would have been in the last year. We had one 60-year-old and one 70-year-old or 70s year old in the mix there. So I mean, yeah, BCH is for everyone basically, and it's good to see it reaching a broad audience. Okay, we've got I have been in Bitcoin according to your own definition since 2010, 2 responses, 9.1%. 2011, the same. 2012, the same. 2013, 5 responses, 22.7%. 2014, 3 responses, 13.6%. 2015, 1 response, 4.5%. Same for 2016, same for 2017. 2019, 2 responses, 9.1%. Same for 2020. And 2021, 1 response, 4.5%. So a bit of a spread, but still kind of dominated by like probably nearly 2/3 is from 2010 to 2014. So I think that's also just the most dedicated listeners who like that this is a very hardcore kind of show, and who would also be willing to fill out the survey, maybe. But I think I said last year that we're going to see the show taking off once we see more of those 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 crowd. Clearly we're not breaking through to them just yet, right?
Yeah, well, hasn't been like a whole lot of hyper bull runs, right? So
yeah, makes sense. It's just the long timers, mostly. I have BCH only, no other crypto, 9 responses, 42.9%, and BCH plus some other crypto, 12 responses, 57.1%. Nobody has crypto but not BCH, and also nobody has no crypto at all. So this is basically consistent to last year. Last year it was about the same ratio, 39 to 61%. This year it's 42 to 57%. So that's kind of interesting, over time. Maybe that's the golden ratio, right? 4 out of 10 BCH maximalists, 6 out of 10 multi-coiners, and that's the ideal mix for a community. I don't know, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like over the years, just how much there's any kind of fluctuation. I think we'll probably get some years, like depending on, I think we'd get some where there'll be, I don't know. It's hard because it's the BitcoinCash podcast, right? But
yes,
I can see there being a time, like if we have one clip that goes viral or something, and then assuming those people do become subscribers and do the listener survey, then I could see this being like a pretty volatile chart year over year.
Yes. I could see that if BCH outperformed the market massively, everyone's faith in BCH would just go through the roof. Yeah. And then suddenly it would be like 70% BCH only and 30% non-BCH. Or conversely, if the whole market rose and BCH just got, like a viral news story or something like that, then, but without outperforming the market, then maybe we get a surge of fresh people who are multi-coiners, but are not, BCH only. I don't know. This ties into the next question, which is, besides BCH, I have a bag of tick all that applies. BTC 6, 31.6%, ETH 7, 36.8%, LTC 1, 5.3%, AVAX and BSV 2, 10.5%, Monero, XMR 7, 36.8%, USDT and USDC, both 2, 10.5%, BNB 1, 5.3%, something else 4, 21.1%, BCH only, who cares about that trash? 8 answers, 42.1%, and XRP, ADA, Cardano, Solana, Doge, eCash, DAI, ICP, and I'm a no coiner all got 0%, basically. Or they all got 0%. So relative to last year, it seems like last year the most commons were BTC, ETH, and Monero in a sort of third. This year, Monero and ETH are the top two, and BTC has fallen into third. And then last year, we also had more of a spread of other coins. We also had more responses, so that makes sense. But Cardano, Solana, Litecoin, Doge, we had 2 XCC respondents last year, etc. But not this year. And the stable coins are also pretty stable. Some users, but less. What do you think? What do you make of this?
The no XCC holders, but still BSV holders kind of surprises me. Why still hold BSV at all? The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like, it's too much effort to just dump it out of my cold storage, split the coins, maybe unsplit coins. That it's like, I'm not gonna fuck around with my cold storage setup or something. But yeah, I'm also surprised. Like, I don't know. To me, BSV seems deader than ever, basically. But
yeah,
we've still got some believers. So I don't know. You can always write into the show if this is you. Let us know what's going on. What's the story? What are we missing here? Very, very open to hear about that. But I think we would know as well too. It's not like we've been on this show like, BSV, blah blah blah. Like, we had Joshua Hensley on. We followed a lot of what happened with Craig Wright. Talked about HODLocker. Kept an eye on the guy, but it's just not going anywhere. These guys are now in BTC. Now they're doing Fractal Bitcoin. Like, all the energy is just drained out of it. Calvin's on his so-called holiday that he'll be, doesn't impact his commitment to BSV at all, but also his team is taking over his Twitter feed and he's never going to be heard from again. Craig is on the run from the law in Thailand. Ryan X. Charles is making meme of the week, mocking him. Like, what? Where's the benefit? Monero's my biggest, not surprise exactly, but Monero is clearly, coming up more on people's radar. And I think it's the Joel Valenzuela theory. Like, people need to switch to working P2P currencies, and Monero and BCH are the only two. And some people are obviously the listeners to the show like BCH as well. So it makes sense that people are sort of solidifying their position in those two coins, I think.
Yeah, that's the only one that in my mind, like, still gets a completely, they're cool.
Yeah, the only legitimate ally of the BCH podcast. Yeah, I would agree with that too. I don't have any at the moment, or maybe I do, but it's just such a pain to sync up the node. But yeah, that's it. I think that's good to see. Good to see. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate the current state of Bitcoin Cash's community and progress? Starting from the bottom, a 3, 1 respondent, 4.8%, a 4, 1 respondent, 4.8%, a 6, 1 respondent, 4.8%, 7, 4 respondents, 19%, 8, 7 respondents, 33%, 9, 1 respondent, 4.8%, and 10, 6 respondents, 28.6%. So this means that 65%, 2/3 of, like, nearly a third of listeners said 10 out of 10, and 2/3 are basically represented in an 8+ out of 10. And if we have a look relative to last year it was similar. A couple of people put in 3, 4, like one person each for 3, 4, and 6. but people were heavier on 8 rather than 10. So there's been some migration. So basically, I think our top end has shifted up a little bit. Like, people are pretty happy, I'd say, by this metric, don't you think?
Yeah, I every time I see someone rate something 10 out of 10, I'm like, why? What do you mean? There's no room for improvement at all? I don't believe that. But it's nice to see. Let's see. Okay, so 22, 7, 8. 7, oh, way less. Yeah, okay. 50%. Yeah, okay, that's good. I would say that is really good. I would say people that are saying 10, drop it down to 9. Like,
well,
because that shift is still good, but don't.
Well, it has to be realistic, though.
Yeah.
It has to be like relative to what is realistic. You can hit a 10 out of 10. Relative to, are we the global reserve currency? No. Oh, okay, therefore it can't be a 10. Like, no, I think I put, maybe I'm this person who put 9 or 10. I don't know. I think I was like, yeah, we're crushing it. We're giving it 10. What I want to know is these people who put 3 and 4, we had a couple of those last year as well too. What are they looking for? Like, again, if this was you, feel free to write into the show and give us some more detail as to what's going on there, because it's like the opposite of the 10 problem, right? What more do you want, guys? Like, the community is growing, the price has been up, not killing it, but it's been up. Things have been harmonious. There's no splits and infighting. There's loads of development. There's new apps starting. I don't know, like, where are we catastrophically failing, basically, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what I voted, which is unfortunate.
10. You voted 10.
Maybe.
Show like
I might have.
All right, but yeah, anyway, seems like, okay, things have not surged to all-time high. Again, I think this would be heavily influenced if the price pumped massively. So suddenly everyone would be 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, really happy with their investment, but seems we're doing well.
For the people that did vote 3 or 4, I'm really curious. Like, did you go to BLISS? Have you gone to St. Kitts?
Well, we're going to see the BLISS questions in a minute, so
okay.
maybe we can tie that in there. Okay, next question: are you in favor of Jason Dreisner's VM limits chips, including the big num addendum? Importantly, as discussed in episode 122. So 11 people, 52.4%, said yes, lock in November 2024 for May 2025 upgrade, please. 4 people, 19%, said undecided, still hangs in the balance for a decision by November. 1 person said no, the concept is good but needs more time and discussion. 0 people said no, adjusting the VM limits or big nums is a bad idea. 6 people, 28.6%, said unsure, need to read up. And 1 person said unsure, but don't care either way, 4.8% there. So basically half of people are like, let's do it. And then the rest are basically split between undecided and need to read up. So,
which is probably the same thing, right? Like, undecided because not all of the testing was done when they did maybe look into it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, but I felt like the difference to me is unsure, need to read up is like, I might not even know what this is.
Right.
Whereas undecided still hangs in the balance is like, because that's basically yes, but as opposed to don't know, right? Because then you have nobody voted like this is like we shouldn't be doing VM limits. And nobody said, or 1 person only said the concept is good, but it needs more discussion. So the undecideds are like, we want to get this in. It's just a question of whether or not we should, whereas unsure is like, don't know enough to have an opinion.
Okay. Makes sense to me. I think.
But this is pretty strong support, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure.
Like last year, if we compare to last year, we asked about Bitcoin Cash Ortis chip to algorithmically adjust BCH block size. Well, that was doing even better. That got 70% yes. And then the other 30% was split between unsure and the concept is good, but needs a bit more work. So, I mean, I feel like Abla was a slam dunk, though. Like, that was about as, fuck yes, let's do this, as we're going to see the community get.
Yeah, and that's easy for everyone to understand, too, right? But big ends, people are like, a number's a number. Why? What do you mean we need bigger numbers?
Bam. The numbers are too small. It's like, what do you mean? It's in the computer? The numbers are in the computer? It's like one of those moments. I mean, I obviously, for anyone who's undecided, you can read up on it. Actually, we'll be doing one more episode with Jason Dreisner later this week as well too, because he really wants to. He's going to start his media blitz. It's cutting it close to the line. It's going to be, October. All the approvals need to flow in, right? But I mean, they've been putting out some good work on it. The testing suite's all there. I mean, I feel like it's had a lot of work. I don't know, how are you feeling? Are you feeling? I'm feeling like I'm not quite swayed to like I'm not putting out a statement for it yet for the podcast, but I feel like if I put a couple of days in and did a deep dive on the latest testing, it might put me over the line. Yeah,
I think they're cutting it close, but I think they're putting the work in to get it done for November, or like to lock it in for November. So I feel pretty confident with it. Like, I think I went from really being like, maybe wait, to they have my support now, because as far as I can tell, like, they're putting the work in and they know more about it than I do. So
Yeah. I mean, not everyone's going to be an expert on it, but obviously the whole point of the chip process is to be confidence building. And I feel like we sort of seem to be past the point that there would be a split, or that there would be a significant amount of people who are upset if it got in. So in that sense, I think the risk has, like, it's the job, the risk has already been minimized. So I'm a big fan of that. The counter argument, the reason still to be conservative, is we cannot sort of risk a bug like at all, because it would shake the confidence in the network, and then we'd be in a bit of a mess. Like, do we do another chip, and does it take a whole year to then fix the problem? Or is there some kind of emergency fix that we coordinate, or something like that? So it's more just about having the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Yeah,
really. But I think if I'm in a scenario where there's no chain split, I'm not super worried about that, I got to say, because I feel like if there was a bug that was an obvious bug, everyone would just get on the same page to fix it, right? If everyone could get on the same page to do the upgrade, and everyone agrees it's a good upgrade, if we needed to fix it, we could. So
it's not like there haven't been bugs in Bitcoin before, right? Like,
yeah. Like, I don't think I understand the argument for we want to seem professional and stable and well managed to the outside world and all that. But I think the vast majority of the world has no idea what's happening in BCH. So even if there was some minor bug and we just patched it, it's not like, our reputation is not so big that it's going to turn into a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And people ship bugs on ETH and shit all the time, and then they just fix it, and everyone goes, okay, they're devs, they fixed the bug, and they just crack on with it. So I'm not deathly afraid that our reputation is going to suffer even if we did put in a bug, as long as it didn't turn into a drama. Like, some people like the bug and want to keep it, or some people think we need to ossify so we can't fix the bug, like, which wouldn't happen for us. So anyway, I think there's pretty strong support here. Okay, we've got a new question. Which of the following BCH apps have you used? So this got 18 responses, so a few people just skipped out on this one. So each option has two options, which is once or twice to try it and also use it regularly. Okay, so BCH Bull, 5 people each for regularly and tried it out, which is 27.8%. BCH Guru, 6 people, 33.3% tried it, and 1 person, 5.6%, uses it regularly. A fifth of gaming, 9 people, 50% of respondents tried it, and 11% use it regularly. Cauldron also, 9 people tried it, 50%. and 5 people use it regularly, 27.8%. BitGree, 8 people tried it, 44.4%, and 1 person uses it regularly, 5.6%. And TapSwap, 7 people, 38.9% used it once or twice, and 2 people, 11.1% used it regularly. I thought this was a really interesting addition to the survey because we didn't have anything like this last year because the ecosystem was still too small, right? There weren't enough cool, compelling, like projects. I mean, I guess BCH Bull was doing all right, but it was much less developed. BCH Guru existed, but they didn't have live stuff shipped, right? Just the minting. A Fifth of Gaming and Cauldron were probably not really that usable. Same with BitGree. TapSwap was maybe kind of slightly usable, but it just goes to show, like, according to these stats, Cauldron are doing the best. Not only are they tied for having the most people try it, but they're also tied for the most people using it regularly. So they have both a high interest rate and a high engagement retention rate. AFOG is the second most popularly tried, but it's less used than BCH Bull. What do you make of these stats?
I'm kind of curious about using Cauldron regularly, because I don't, right? I don't really trade like at all. I mean, most of the time, that even BCH Bull, I'm like just breaking even over 3 years now. Like what? So I'm curious what are you excited about on Cauldron? Like, what are the tokens that are like, hell yeah, this is a good project, I want to support this? Or if it's just trading, meme coins and stuff like that for now. Because I know there's the Furu stuff.
Yeah, there's Furus. There's the Zap It token. It's been pretty popular. The Cauldron socks, so you can cash those in for your socks. I've done that. That was awesome, actually. There's a Fifth of Gaming have launched a token. Disclaimer, I bought some because I want to support that project and because I think they've got a really interesting method for monetizing it and so forth. XLV has been up there for a while. I don't really know what that is though, but it gets a lot of trades going. And now there's this one M-Bull. I don't know what that is, but it's got 100 BCH of liquidity. So somebody's putting some cash in there. Like Furu's only has 14 BCH of liquidity. AFOG 18, XLV 4, and then Emble just has 100 BCH. So either some whale is pumping that one or something. But yeah, I mean, it sort of makes sense to me that people like Cauldron a lot though, because BCH TV, also shout out, Beachad doing some great work there. It makes sense to me that people like Cauldron because it's familiar. They've used what's called DEXs on other chains, so it's a simple thing to just get involved in, right?
Yeah.
Has broad appeal. Like, people can do it to speculate. They can do it because they want to get in on a new project. They want to farm some tokens or whatever. Yeah, it makes sense to me. There's reasons to go back to it in terms of checking on your liquidity pools and so forth. And I know, Luke Pryor especially is so excited about Cauldron. And I think he's right to be, because it's the kind of thing, if that, like we've seen BCH Bull get a lot of TVL locked, but if Cauldron starts getting a lot of TVL locked, like that will really get notice outside of BCH, because everyone can instantly get it. There's a DEX with massive TVL. Instantly everyone would think, okay, something must be going on here, right? Not only is BCH being transacted, but whatever the token ecosystem is really thriving if they are also having a good amount of TVL, right? Anyway, just to say that, if you haven't, try out and maybe use a bit more regularly if you're interested. BCH Bull, BCH Gurus, AFOG, Cauldron, BitGree, and TapSwap, because they're all great projects, and I recommend all of them. This list might grow significantly by next year. I don't know. we'll see. It might become unmanageable at some point, but interesting to see. So at this one was not. We didn't have a one like this last year. Okay, then we have the same for the wallets. Which of the following BCH wallets do you use? So again, you have once or twice and regularly option for all of them. Selene, 5 users, 23.8% once or twice, and 12, 57.1% regularly. Cash and I's, 5, 23.8%, both once or twice and regularly. Paytaka, once or twice, 12, 57.1%, and 2, 9.5% regularly. Zapit, once or twice, 8, 38.1%, and regularly 3, 14.3%. Bitcoin.com, once or twice, 3, 14.3%, and regularly 13, 61.9%. Electron Cash Desktop, once, 3, 14.3%, and regularly 17, 81%. Electron Cash Mobile, once, 5, 23.8%, and regularly 2, 9.5%. Flowy, once or twice, 4, 19%, and regularly 1, 4.8%. Stack Wallet, once or twice, 4, 19%, and regularly 2, 9.5%. Other non-custodial wallet, 3, 14.3%, and I only have custodial credits, 0%. So I have to say, first of all, good job. Literally nobody is using custodial wallets that replied to the survey. Big win there. Absolutely love to see that. Secondly, Electron Cash Desktop, by far 17 responses, the most regularly used wallet. And I can see why. It's a bit of a power user wallet, which is the same demographic as our survey results. And it's just so good. It's got so much of what you need. It's so useful. And if you're stacking like a decent amount of BCH, you're almost certainly going to be, paying attention to that. But otherwise, good to see a bit of a breakdown. Selene, I'm glad people are like half of respondents or more are using that regularly. That's very validating for the work we've been doing on that. I hope we can improve significantly over the next year, but that's great. Cash and I's getting some users. Paytaka and Zapit both getting people like trying them, but not maybe sticking with them as much. And Bitcoin.com still being used pretty regularly. I guess, again, they just had such a lead in the community in terms of the features and the build out. They still have that shareable link, which we haven't replicated in Selene. What do you make of this?
The Bitcoin.com wallet stat being as high as it is actually surprises me, because like for the past probably year now, I've tried as much as possible to move to Selene and Stack, like at least on mobile. I fucking hate the mobile Bitcoin.com wallet, and I don't want to use it. I don't care about the shareable link. And I get I'm not the demographic for that shareable link feature anyway, but that was a very clear decision for me to make the switch.
Well, me too. I'm also not using it. I think maybe I have it just as a just in case backup, but I don't want to use it. I really don't want to. And I would guess, if I had to, that maybe in the next year we'll see this like plummet off a cliff. Basically, the problem is that Selene, Cash and I's, Paytaka, Zapit, they're still a bit, they're still cooking a little bit, right? They still haven't just been around long enough with a good full built out feature set and reliably won't have a bug when you really need to show someone, BCH, and you don't want it to fuck up. Like, even if it's just a 2% or a 1% chance of that, you still have it in the back of your mind, and that over enough transactions that plays out, and then it puts people off a little bit. I know we have that with Selene users. And so we're really looking to improve on that, obviously, but partly it just takes time. A few edge cases get found, we fix the bugs, some of the core code that's used to make transactions and sign transactions and find the right UTXOs just settles down and stops being touched as much. And the Bitcoin.com wallet have had that for years and years, whereas Selene and some of the others maybe haven't, So, I think I was also a little bit surprised that they were still regularly used at those rates. But I think, that'll fall apart once the competition improves a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only way I could see Bitcoin.com keeping their percentage up here is if they, by next year, have full support for cash tokens, which I don't think they're going to have.
I think they might. I honestly think they might. I think they might be.
Do you think they're quietly
looking
cooking
into that? I think so. I think so. Like, it doesn't, like when we had Corbin on the show, you know, he wasn't fully convinced. He was kind of like, yeah, we've seen this happen a lot with SLP and the various other things. But as time goes on, the case for it only gets stronger as momentum builds, you know? And like we saw, like people are using, Cauldron quite a lot, right? None of these other, well, TapSwap is a cash tokens thing, and BCH Guru kind of is a cash tokens thing, but BCH Bull, AFOG, BitGree, they're not cash tokens projects, but Cauldron is still up there. So that the interest is there. Like, people obviously need a wallet to transact with, right? So yeah, I think they might. I'm not going to be surprised to see the Bitcoin.com team deliver more for BCH in the next year than they have in the last several, for sure. Well, not for sure, but that's my expectation. I just have a bit of a feeling that's going to be what we're going to see.
I hope you're right.
BCH, we haven't been having splits.
Yeah,
I think the credibility is rising, and the belief that we're not going to fuck it up again, basically. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, but only well, these are two questions. Let's just do them together because they're kind of a pair, right? So it's on a scale of 1 to 10, rate BCH Bliss. But the first version is if you attended BCH Bliss, and the second is if you did not attend in person and you watched the live streams or surrounding content. So for the in-person attendees, we had 6 responses. 1 said 4 out of 10, 16.7%. 3, which is 50%, said 9 out of 10, and 2, 33%, said 10 out of 10. Then for the non-in-person attendees, 1 person, 7.1%, answered, and this is from 14 responses, 1 person answered for 1 out of 10, 4 out of 10, and 6 out of 10. 2 people, 14.3%, said 7 out of 10. 8 and 9 both got 4 responses, 28.6%, and 1 person, 7.1%, said 10 out of 10. So, I was really impressed by this because, firstly, I felt like everyone basically who attended in person had a fucking great time. Like, really didn't get negative feedback on the ground. And I'm sad to hear that 1 person only gave it a 4 out of 10. They, again, feel free to write into the show and let us know what's wrong. But certainly in the moment, I didn't feel like we were having that. And afterwards, we didn't really get a lot of negative feedback. But what impressed, me is that the non-attendees, I thought, might have been much more negative because a lot of the stream was just like dead time. You obviously don't get the benefit of being there in person and all the stuff we were doing, the social events and so forth. But it seemed like people still enjoyed it quite a lot. Like nearly 60% of people, or over 60% of people, gave it an 8 or more out of 10. And then, 1 person said 1, so maybe they ended up sitting there watching the stream for ages, being like, "Where's the videos?" But I think, even the fact that we just did a bit of surrounding content, we put the talks out afterwards so people could watch them back. Like, maybe that got us over the line there. What do you think?
Yeah, I can understand being upset at those live streams. Like, most of it, or not most of it, but there was a lot of dead air, right? And I remember even reading the chat, people being like, "When is this going to be?" Well, there's a schedule on screen if you just want to take a quick peek. You don't.
but we didn't fully stick to that even as well. Like, we were actually pretty close. Yeah. To be fair, we did put the schedule up, and it wasn't like when there was supposed to be stuff, there wasn't, basically. So in that sense, I think we did a good job.
Yeah.
But compared to, like, if you were there and you're outside, you're in the corridor, you're chatting to people, you're talking with the speakers or whatever, like, it was just mint. But then if you're on the live stream, you kind of need to be half distracted doing something else, because if you're just sitting there waiting for it, it just gets so fucking boring so quickly.
Yeah. And the live streams did have a couple audio issues too, right? So or like even like lighting wasn't the most ideal and this and that. But I think the edits, like things got cleaned up quite a bit.
Yeah, shout out to you, by the way, for doing all the work that you did on those. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So if you voted this one or the 4 even, like, and it was the live streams that upset you, go check out some of the edited content, like, because live production is really hard.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're not running the Super Bowl here yet, but it's a thing we'll improve on and hopefully when we're later on doing live streams or what have you, like, maybe that was a bit of a learning experience for us, I feel like. But I'm impressed that maybe the recorded content carried us a bit there, and I think it goes to show that, like, we had a high quality of talks. A lot of those were really excellent, and yeah, I guess the fact that we even just pulled it off, maybe people are giving us credit for it. It was the first time ever that we ran it, and it did all run. Okay, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't like a disaster. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's pretty good. Okay, this is an interesting one. If you were BCH dictator and could decide what should be the number one top priority of the community in allocating its time, attention, money, and resources for the next year. Okay, so the most preferred answer was fostering or supporting new emerging apps, new flip starters, etc., with 5 responses, 23.8%. The next most common, which was three responses, 14.3%. This is all the same for physical meetups and conferences, e.g. local meetups, BLISS or BCH Argentina. Also, existing app development, BCH Bull, A Fifth of Gaming, BCH Guru, Cauldron, and also wallet development, Selene, Cash Nice, Paytucker, Zapid. So all of those got 3 responses, 14.3%. Then the next most common was protocol and node development, e.g. chips, full nodes, and BCH content creation, BCH Podcast, Ray uses BitcoinCash, BCHF Weekly News, which each got 2 responses, 9.5%, and then 1 response, 4.8% each for retail merchant onboarding, e.g. Bitcoin Cash City, Paytaka Philippines, BCH Argentina, mining infrastructure, decentralization tooling and education, and network infrastructure and dev tooling, e.g. Fulcrum, CashScript, BitAuth, IDE. So the community thinks we need to support new apps and flip starters, but secondary to that, wallet and app development plus meetups, which I think is pretty reasonable. I'm fairly sure I voted for existing app development. I think we've got a strong thing going there with like BCH Bull, AFOG, BCH Guru, and we need those to kick up a level, basically, and then that will pave the way for a new generation of other apps and developers and builders to come on. Like, when you have projects succeeding, that also does a lot to drive network tooling. It also drives wallet development because you have more people using them to use those apps. So I thought that existing app development was really key. I think it's interesting that retail onboarding has totally fallen off the priority. Only 1 person went for that. And mining and network infrastructure are both low priorities, which I think makes sense because mining, we just don't have enough clout to really fix it. And the network infrastructure, like, seems like it's kind of good enough. It will keep getting better, but it's not the bottleneck. What did you take away from this?
I am really impressed by how kind of evenly split things are. I think, this will kind of help keep all of the community in check in and of itself. Like, you always have people kind of advocating for whatever that they want. And it's nice to see it kind of equally split, as long as it doesn't. I mean, I would like to see a little more support for existing apps and stuff. But that's the only thing.
What do you think about? I mean, it's interesting that retail onboarding is down, which was a sort of a trap in quotation marks. It's not, but it's something that if we'd run this survey 4 or 5 years ago, people would be like, retail, like get more merchants, you know?
Yeah.
Now everyone's like, okay, that didn't really work out, or at least we're not in the right place for it. Like maybe once we have better wallets, once we have traffic being driven by these apps, then maybe it will swing back around to focusing on that once people can say, okay, we can convert these into a local economy more easily. But physical meetups is you know, some people, well, people clearly enjoyed BLISS, but the other thing, you know, getting out there in the real world is still on people's mind, you know?
Yeah, I think like all of the, okay, it's always the chicken and the egg thing, right? Like you need people to go to the merchants. If you don't have anyone that even knows what Bitcoin Cash is, there's really no point to get a merchant to adopt it. Everything else here kind of gets more users, right? And so I think you're right. Like it'll just be kind of a tip. And I think more physical conferences, like the news of a conference for specific technology, might be more effective for merchant onboarding than going to a merchant and being like, please, can you do this thing for me? Like you asking them versus them taking an interest because they see things naturally happening.
Yeah, true. Okay, so now the next question is about predictions for next year. So I just want to cut back to the 2023 survey because we had predictions from last year to catch up on. So we had one question in the 2023 survey about ETH will flip BTC to number one crypto, and what year people thought. And essentially 7 people said 2024, 16.7%. So guys, the year's not over yet, but I think your ship is probably a bit sunk on that one. ETH has been really underperforming BTC, and then another 11.9% said next year. So that 25% segment is looking really rough. The future years we'll check in on. 5 people said later than 2026, and 3 people said never. And then the biggest chunk was 18 people said BCH will overtake BTC before ETH does. I feel like wisdom of the crowds is coming in big here, because I think if we reran this poll, that would get even more support than before, right? I think the evidence is good. BCH is moving in the right direction. ETH moving in the wrong direction. BTC stagnant, but kind of unchallenged as the king, right?
Yeah.
Nice. And then we also had a question about in 12 months' time, BTC chain will have the following development changes live on mainnet. Nobody voted for CTV. 1 person voted for drive chains. 4 people voted for any kind of soft fork. But 21 people, 47.7% said, are you kidding? None of the above. Laser Eyes got that on lock. So wisdom of the crowds, delivering that spot on, nothing happened. And then also 50%, 22 people said, who cares, seriously? So also fair enough. 11.4% said at least one camp will chain split onto their own coin. So technically that didn't happen, but we did just have that segment about Fractal Bitcoin, which I'll give half marks for that. So not bad, but everybody correctly was like, nothing's going to happen. And I think if we ran this poll again, I would double down more on that. I would say, shit, nothing's going to change. Next, OpCat, that's a dream, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So our prediction question for this year, 2024, is by the time of the listener survey next year, which of the following wavering BTC believers interviewed or mentioned on the show will have publicly and unambiguously defected from BTC to BCH? 17 responses total. John Carvalho, Eric Wall, Udi Wertheimer, and Paul Stortz all got 1 response, 5.9%. Reardon Code, Vlad Kostia, and some other prominent BTC figures got 2 responses each, 11.8%. Moonsettler got 5 responses, 29.4%. Nopara got 6 responses, 35.3%. And none capitulators will cope with Litecoin, XMR, or quote, the free market of coins instead, got 8 responses, 47.1%. So we're looking for Nopara and Moon Settler to be BCH adopters in the next year. Everyone else, nobody really believes, and basically they'll find some ways to cope. Right? We've seen even a bit of progress on this already. Vlad Kostia added BCH to his list of coins that he's accepting for donations, and then said, "Guys, I know you've called me out a ton, basically, for ignoring BCH. Well, now you're not ignored. Please, can you stop bullying me?" Basically, and my answer to that was, "Well, I'm glad you've stopped ignoring us, but the whole point was we were right, and you didn't recognize it yet." So he hasn't quite got there yet, but at the very least, if he's not actively ignoring BCH, then there's not as much need. He can come to it in his own time. I feel like. What do you think? Are you betting on any of these people to capitulate?
Yeah, I think I voted for Moon Settler and Nopara, but I think I kind of answered this a different way, which was just like, of all the people on this list, those are the only 2 that I see really the possibility of it happening within the next year.
Enough intellectual honesty, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Shinobi would ever. I think it'll be the capitulators will cope.
Yeah, well, he's 0%. He's got a slot in for maybe appearing in the intro next year, though, with the BCH people are actually really smart, or whatever it was that he said. Yeah. Anyway, that's a bit of inside baseball, this one. Okay. Of the regular Bitcoin Cash podcast segments, I like the inclusion of Tick All That Apply, 22 responses. Guest intro and Bitcoin backstory, 18 responses, 81.8%. The same for community comment of the week and message to the community. Price got wrecked. Only 12 people voted for that, 54.5%. Meme of the week had 16 responses, 72.7%. Thanks to contributors and shoutouts, got 17 responses, 77.3%. Cut Them All, Let Anarchy Reign got 3 responses, 13.6%. That's a bit of a troll option. I put that in there as the troll option. But there is a serious element to it where if everybody voted for that, we could also just do some more episodes which were, okay, no segments, no nothing, let's just sit down the guests and have a chat, kind of like we did with Devin Erickson. It's more like that kind of episode,
Yeah.
And maybe some people like that, but I'm glad to see that people do like our regular segments for the most part. So the price is the only one that's doing poorly enough that I feel like maybe we got to cut it, or at least not cut it, but we'll just mention the price and move on, instead of spending time on it. I think people are like, you could spend better minutes of the podcast on something else, right?
Yeah. Part of me is almost like, what if we're just like, BCH price is this in USD, and that's that. That for the historical kind of
context,
price. Yeah. But it's also like, it's so easy. BCH price, google.com. It's right. Yeah, I think the only value in my mind of having that price is tracking the historical, at that point in time. And then if there's big changes over 3 months or something, it's kind of nice to see this was the price at this date. What has happened, and kind of rationalize the events, I guess.
Well, because part of the reason that we still do it is because it's a good way to segue into what's going on in the markets. Usually if there's a big bit of news or a conference or ETF announcements or whatever, that can usually be okay, this is what's probably basically driving the sentiment at the moment. But maybe people just don't care, and people are like, well, let's just crack on with the real info. And, this isn't a price speculator type of show. There's plenty of other places to get that. So, yeah, I mean,
and price has been pretty stable for quite a while too, right? It's not like there's exciting things. Yeah.
Maybe that's also playing into it. But yeah, let's see. Last year, price got 67.4%.
Yeah,
thanks to contributors has improved. Actually, people are more liking the shout outs. Maybe I think we've been doing good on having, we have a little bit of banter at the end there. I think that's pretty key to keeping people engaged, so that the funders get, recognition and people don't just tune out,
Yeah. Do you think if the price of BCH was $10,000, would people be like, I don't want to fucking see the price?
True. True. Okay. Well, maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's doing crappily enough on this poll from our most hardcore listeners that maybe we're going to try and save some time on that. I'll still mention the price, but we'll just blast through it a bit quickly, maybe. Okay. BCH will be the global reserve currency. Yes, unsure, or no. Yes, 15 answers, 68.2%. Unsure, 6 answers, 27.3%. No, 1 answer, 4.5%. So relative to last year, again, it's basically the same. Last year we had 70% yes, 27% no, and 27% unsure and 1 no, and basically the same this year. So this is the same as I have BCH or I have BCH and other cryptos, very stable year to year. Interesting.
Yeah. I wonder, it would be nice to know too, like, I don't want to de-anonymize people, but it would be nice to know, like, oh, this person voted on the past 3 years of listener surveys, right? Like, for the same
Have they changed their mind?
Yeah, have their answers changed?
Well, we could have people submit, a hash with their response next year so that we could track people year to year. But again, that would rely on them doing it, and it's kind of a fuck around,
They use a wallet to sign a message. It says, I just completed the Bitcoin Cash listener survey for whatever year.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, we could even automate it with Wallet Connect.
Yeah.
And then we would have more insight into how things had changed over time. I think we get about the right amount of insight. Okay, and then we had a bunch of feedback and so forth. We're not going to go into all of that, but I put on the slide basically the summary. If you go back to the slides there of the main things that people said. Okay, so thanks to everybody that said we're doing a great job. I really appreciate it, and it's great to have that support. So a bunch of people had kind of support messages about that. A lot of people had support for big ints. So again, I think actually quite a popular upgrade. People really were making a big point about that. One person said that BCH hasn't actually flipped LTC. Look at the TPS and active addresses. And my answer to that is, sorry, mate, the definition of flipping is market cap. Everyone knows that. Okay, like you can have obviously talk about flipping in other metrics, but it doesn't really matter if LTC has a lot of active addresses or whatever. If their coins doing crap on the market cap, well, then we flip them. That's the answer. Unspecified flipping just means market cap. That's the agreed definition. So we have. Someone said that maybe I need to get a better camera angle, and it's true. I need like a little stand or something. I just put it on top of my laptop so that it's like looking up at me. And they said, then they put it on their 50-inch TV, and their fiance is getting like intimidated by my enormous like booming voice coming at them. And you know what I honestly thought when I read that comment? I thought, well, that probably just is an accurate experience of what it's like to be with a woman who is, whatever, 5'9" or shorter and meets me in real life. Is like, I'm bigger than you and looking down at you and have a loud voice. So, oh man. But it's just funny to see it through that lens. But yeah, of course, and they said like maybe try, wear a shirt instead of a singlet. Okay, I'm wearing a Celine shirt today, but yeah, sometimes I wear a singlet, and that's just because I'm like, it's my show. I'll
yeah, but I want to be comfortable. Fuck it. Yeah. There's no dress code on the show.
Well, maybe we'll have to institute one to no, we're not going to do that. Okay, so somebody said, look, why does the podcast take like a week to get uploaded? Can't we just get it out quicker? And the answer to that is yes, if you donate us a shitload of money, because the reason that it doesn't come out the next day is because we're not funded for me to work on it and or Jett to work on it full time. Like, that's just the fact is we're fitting it in with everything else we're doing, and we get some funding and we're working on it, but we haven't got to the point yet that we can be full-time on it. But if we were full-time, we would just do it the next day every single time. But
yeah,
we're not, right? So that's the answer.
And like, go check out a live stream.
Yeah, the live streams are available. Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, if you are a dedicated listener to the show and you want to get it the second it comes out, well then you can either watch it live, which we always announce, when it's going to be beforehand, or if failing that, if you miss it, you're asleep, whatever, then it is go on the YouTube page on the live tab, and you can watch the live stream the second after we finish it recording, and it's there for you. So yeah, if you want to do that, that's already an option for you.
If there's any it's not like I'm not editing like animations on the like uploads. It's like correcting very small sound things, removing like weird mouth sounds, or like if people do a lot of
Jeremy's swallowing as he's like drinking his water. Yeah.
I try to do as much of that like on the live as possible, but sometimes it's like kind of for the listeners more than the viewers. Like if you don't have the visual that someone just took a drink and you hear a big gulp, that can be kind of shocking, right? So if you're really like concerned about time, just watch the streams. I wish I could do.
You can get it as
I don't want to be making excuses, but I don't think this is
a good job.
Yeah, I don't I don't think it's a problem.
We get it out as fast as we can, basically, given how we operate with the show. So again, if we got massive funding, if BCH 10x's, well, then come back and talk to us. And
BCH 10x's. Don't worry about it, guys. I'll get them out the next
day. Okay. Should somebody also put in a comment saying, like, should the BCH community make a P2P goods trading marketplace? Like, wouldn't it be good if BCH had a central site which explained all this stuff to noobs, since it's really complicated? And also, wouldn't it be great if we had a site where people could, buy and sell t-shirts and stuff like that? And the answer to that is, well, firstly, be someone, make it yourself. If you think this is, needed and really, really important, crack on with it yourself and do it. But if you want some insight on why it doesn't already exist, the answers are, one, in terms of a central site with lots of information and so forth. That's what the BCH podcast site is. So we've made our attempt at that. And there are others, there's discover.cash and there's Kim's bitcoincash.com. And so there's various iterations of that, but it's decentralized. So there's never going to be the one Bitcoin Cash homepage. It's just different people make their attempt at trying to summarize everything. And there's pros and cons to every different way of doing that. So find whatever one you most prefer now and recommend people to it, or start your own, basically. And then in terms of a P2P goods trading marketplace, it's kind of a similar answer, which is, well, we have some P2P like the Zapit and Paytaka marketplaces, but P2P marketplaces are really hard to do, really hard. And if you're going to do actually trading of physical goods on top of that with t-shirts and whatever, that was basically the idea of Open Bazaar, which famously kind of failed in crypto. And many people have tried this problem. Not that you won't be able to find a solution, maybe you can, but you should go and look into those projects and how far they got and why they shut down and everything, because it's unbelievably difficult to run any kind of P2P goods trading stuff, because you think, well, the crypto stuff is already there, so it should all be easy. No, it's going to be like shipping stuff is a nightmare, and collecting people's orders, getting the network effect of buyers and sellers. Then if you're already building crypto, people are going to be running all kinds of frauds and scams. So now you need escrows and people not delivering and reputation systems and blah, on and on and on and on and on. So yeah, that's why that doesn't exist. But if we really need it, feel free to make it. And then we also had one. This wasn't a comment that anyone left, but it's a feedback that I've heard a little bit of recently, which is like, guys, why don't you just shut up about BTC? Why don't you just stop talking about BTC? It's irrelevant, blah, blah, blah. This is the Bitcoin Cash podcast. And the answer to that is, look, we talk less about BTC than we did in the past, but it's always going to kind of be a little bit relevant, right? It's important to me that the listeners of the show are well informed about some of what's going on there, at least where it relates to BCH, because that's what people are going to bring up to them if they are talking to that community, if they're out talking about crypto. That's what people know, and that's what's on their mind. So it's important to come across as educated and informed on what's going on, rather than just like, I guess you could say, I just don't follow that anymore. BCH is the way. But I don't know. I find it interesting, and it's just like we're genetically joined to them. The collapse of BTC is essentially required for the rise of BCH. Which side drives which side remains to be seen in the end. But we talk about it less and less. But like this fractal Bitcoin and stuff like that, it's quite kind of important, that the community sees how the tides are shifting. What do you think? Should we just cut all BTC chat totally?
I don't really like, if we're going to do that, then I think we just don't like, I don't think we should. I think if we were to do that, we should also stop talking about like other cryptocurrencies, like anything aside from BCH. But if we're aiming for BCH to be a global reserve currency, then talking about the currencies that people use is important.
Yes.
I like that.
We just have to stay on top of it a little bit, like here and there, right? Like we had a segment about ETH today, and we only mix that in some of the time. It's not never, but it's not every episode either. It's like maybe once every 5 or 10 episodes, we do a segment on it, just so people can tell what's going on. And you can learn a lot about BCH from what's going on in the other coins as well, too. Like this whole L2 thing, the L2s are falling apart. Well, if you were always wondering, why does the BCH community fucking obsessed with L1? Now you've seen it fail, and we just knew and dodged that bullet ahead of time. That's the answer.
Except for smart BCH.
Okay, you got me there. Okay, well, we learned that lesson earlier then.
Yeah.
Maybe. We made our own mistakes. Okay, we got meme of the week. Crypto T, who is some 22-year-old girl with a Twitter account with 123,000 plus followers, said eToro can only sell Bitcoin and Ethereum after being sued by the SEC for selling crypto securities. And she posted a screenshot of a news headline, and the news headline says, eToro will only offer Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash in the US after settling SEC charges. And this has become the new meme in the BCH community. I think it's anything but BCH. I love this meme, which is we're at the point now where people have stopped saying it's going to die. They've stopped saying it's going to go away. They've stopped trying to whinge about the technology or find some excuse or dismiss it as a scam or bring up Roger Ver or all of those things. They've all just become ineffective and useless. So the only thing left is to just blanket and just not mention it at all. And this is the most egregious case. Is this Crypto T girl super tribal about crypto? Probably not. But it's right there. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash. And she's just blind to those two words. Like, it comes back to the whole hijacking Bitcoin. And when people are like, well, explain why BCH isn't doing so well if it's so good then. It's shit like this multiplied 1,000 times across all the different people in the industry, right? If you're just getting left out of the discussion. And it's on us. I'm not saying it's not. Like, we need to become so undeniable that people cannot avoid talking about us. And we're getting close to that point, because the only strategy left is ignore us. The only step after that is you just have to talk about us. But I don't know. It makes me laugh even to see this kind of thing, right?
Yeah. It's like time and time again, like BCH is included in, like, it's like a big three, right? And
yes. LTC, the big four sometimes. But even LTC is finding its way. Nobody gives a fuck like this.
Yeah, I mean, eToro's not selling LTC, right? So, but yeah, I don't understand. Like, okay, I think from 2017 to like 2020, let's say, I could understand people's dislike for BCH. Because there was, so many personalities that were just intense. But now it's like, everything's good. Like we've got a great culture now where it's not like just constantly it's not infighting and it's not even outfighting anymore. It's just like, come check this out. We got some cool shit going on here. Want to participate?
Want to give it a go?
Yeah.
Well, it takes time for people to adjust then. But I guess you said until 2020, we've had 4 years of stability. That's been the case for at least 2 years. I guess I expect that it will take another 2 to 3 years. It seems people lag by about 5 years. People are fucking slow. But by about 5 years, I'm sure this will have changed. It's just a gradually then suddenly moment of it's cool to shit on BCH until kind of it's not cool, but you still kind of can and nobody judges you until if you're doing that, it's a bit like, what's your problem? Until one day it suddenly becomes like, we're just talking about BCH. Like, it just suddenly flips to like, oh, everyone's talking about it. It's okay now. People are such herd thinkers, as we've documented on the show many times before. But it's indicative to me. It's absolutely vanished. Seriously, I've no idea what happened to all those. Well, I do actually. There's like price charts and BCH is going to die. And I still get it very occasionally, like 1 or 2 people, but basically no one. And you know what I found was there was when that BSV something was going on with that. And all the laser eyes have gone to them. Why? Because they can still dunk on those guys and still feel like we're the smart ones and you're the idiots. And they have the little contrarian BSV people like arguing back. They've stopped arguing with the BCH community because they just lose. They just lose the argument and look foolish. But that wasn't what it was about anyway. They just wanted to get their kicks feeling like superior. And so that's now where they've all self-segmented off into arguing with someone they're smarter than, rather than worrying about us anymore. And that's great. But then it just, at a certain point, our technology, our apps, our adoption, the growth of this show, of other BCH promoting platforms just needs to get a point that it just becomes the trending thing. That's the only thing we need for it to be the trendy thing for a week or two, one time, for a positive reason, not like with the last one was probably Smart BCH when that collapsed because Roger was involved. And then sort of hijacking Bitcoin earlier this year. But that was more about, wait, BTC actually is a scam, rather than like, wow, BCH is kind of impressing us here. I think that's all we need. One breakthrough app or success story or moment at a big crypto conference or something, someone unexpected suddenly announcing that they've gone all in on BCH. I don't know, whatever. I think that's all we need.
Well, what if the part 2 of Roger's book, like the taking back Bitcoin part of it?
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. I mean, I'm not holding my breath for that, because even though hijacking Bitcoin was fantastic, and I think I wasn't really too clear if the part 2 was sort of like whether it was maybe originally going to be 2 books, but then it kind of ended up getting merged into those final chapters and it came out as one, or whether he has a completely different book coming out, or whether the second book was kind of cooking but it's still a couple of years away, or whether it was already written. Like, I was not too clear about that, so I haven't heard much about it in a while either. So
yeah, I in my head just packaged it away as it'll be a separate book that'll come out probably in a year or 2. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I hope so, but no news about that. So anyway, hijacking Bitcoin was fucking huge. But yeah, maybe the success of that also does pave the way. If there's like, holy crap, there's a sequel to hijacking Bitcoin, that would absolutely bang, because everybody is already like, hijacking Bitcoin was pretty legit.
Yeah,
the people who didn't like it, just they were wrong. They didn't have any credible points or ways to dismiss it or anything. It was just, you don't like it because you're bag holding.
I can't remember where I got wrapped up in some Twitter thread just reading through it, where like I think it was a BTC guy that was like, the only thing I didn't like about hijacking Bitcoin was that it wasn't dramatic enough. Like, they wanted another edit where people were like name calling and trying to see or have insight into like the intentions of certain people. And that's wild to me. Like, to go from
the facts. Yeah.
Well, yeah, when Roger gets heated, I mean, it tends to not go so well as far as publicity goes.
Yes.
So him sticking to the facts, I think, was a great decision. And then for a BTC person, and I might have that wrong, but I think it was a BTC person to be like, oh, I wanted more drama and more action, kind of. It's a little nuts. And they were like, it's a good book. I liked the book. I just wanted more spicy content.
Yeah, you gotta save it for another time. Although it will be an absolute banger if Roger at some point then writes a book like My Life in Crypto or something like that, where he just goes all out on that. That I don't know whether he would do that or not, but that would be something else. That's for sure. That clearly wasn't what this was, and he said that right at the start. Right, it says like, this is not about me or what happened with me or anything. This is just about what happened. So it's all documented, and it was just so needed. It was just so needed. Like, everybody was just always shilling that Block Size Wars book, and apparently loads of people read it who never learned the truth, and it's just been huge. I have been amazed at how much that has done to change the narrative. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, we'll look out for part 2. Fingers crossed. It'll be the kind of thing that we'll forget about, and then it'll come out of nowhere, like at an opportune moment, probably. Okay, message to the community. Jett, do you have any thoughts? Do you think the BCH community are some way to wrap up our learnings from this year's user survey or listener survey?
Not really. I think everyone's doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Like, we've got more content creation coming out now. I think it seems like everyone is doing that 1% more, and it's nice. I think, I don't know. I like the momentum. I like that I'm not really paying attention and things are going real well.
They're just going smoothly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it.
I mean,
I'll keep on keeping.
Okay, then. Yeah, it's been a bit quiet the last few weeks. We got the BCH Argentina conference coming up, and a bit of an announcement about that. I'm not going to be there. You're not going to be there. We originally planned to be there, but due to some circumstances kind of beyond our control, it's not going to happen. I'm still trying to work out what we can do to maybe help fund somebody else to produce some content there, or encourage other things, or maybe highlight, obviously on the podcast Twitter feed and stuff, we'll be retweeting people who are on the ground, but that's just a bit of a shame. But anyway, that seems to be the next thing that's coming up. And then it'll just be basically the end of the year, right? It'll be coming into November, December. Things always slow down. People get busy with their family and, work, last minute rushes at work and stuff like that. So I feel like even though crypto is pretty 24/7, I feel like we're in a bit of a lull here, and we might be for the next couple months. But the VM limit stuff I'm excited for.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I have seen a couple like tweets pop up where it's like, are we starting a bull run right now? Is this going to happen? So maybe things will get exciting in a week or two.
Or maybe it just won't come together. I don't know. What are we at? 62,000 BTC. They just want a bull run. That's what it is.
Just
it's
hopium.
Wish casting. Yeah, it's just hopium. I mean, it is near the 72K, 62K. Okay, it's within striking distance of an all-time high, but people just really, really want there to be a whole halving cycle and the price to go to 200K, and like they want that so badly, but there's no retail adoption to back it up. Nobody cares. There's just more and more paper ways to print Bitcoin to idiots on centralized exchanges. Like,
how is Tether still?
Yeah. That's all that there is. Tether is just grinding out the money. They're now at 120 billion, is it? They're now at nearly 121, 119 billion market cap. The printer is just running this whole time. It has been. They've added nearly 40 billion since October of last year, since September of last year. Like, that's just trying to prop everything up, right? Think about if they didn't have that, what price would BTC be at? And think about also, there's inflation is insane in fiat currency terms all around the world. Like, it's just so anemic. That's the word for it. The whole crypto market is just anemic, and it's because BTC isn't getting user adoption. ETH isn't either. It's getting speculating gambling. Like nothing is actually really like this is going to change the world. And now everyone's more interested in AI. So even it being the exciting tech bro thing to talk about is gone.
I saw a chart, and this is kind of only tangentially related, but I saw a chart that's like, despite North America's population increasing by like a pretty dramatic extent over the past couple of years, retail income has not increased at all. So like, I'm curious if it's because of inflation, and I mean, like the official rates are one thing, but food inflation is still nuts, right? So yeah, I'm wondering if people aren't going to, well, I know malls are just dying, but generally like retail outlets because of the cost of things, or if it's other like subscription services and digital goods that are kind of driving a modern marketplace. I don't know I haven't really thought about this too much, but I thought it was interesting to see like, yeah, we have 170 million more people just in a couple like states, I'm pretty sure. And it's
mostly immigration, right? That's the thing. Just for the off-topic
I suppose it could be
politics segment of the show, like fertility rates are just plummeting all around the world, which is a huge fucking issue. And especially in places like, the US, Australia, the UK, most of Europe, like people are not having kids. And to the extent those places are growing, it's because of immigration, both legal and increasingly also illegal, with the southern border in the US being open, the UK being in crisis recently with their unchecked migration and all this. Like, it's just everything. This is one of those things where like Bitcoiners go a bit crazy and say it's all related to the money, but it is all related to the money. It's the fact as the fiat scam is coming to an end, other changes in technology too, but economics drives so much of, things like whether people are getting together, whether people are feeling confident to have kids, and whether people need to immigrate to somewhere new because they're desperate and they're like, it's not working where I am. All of those factors are related. And as the fiat scam unwinds, there's so much inefficient money is being distributed so inefficiently and to such a small percentage of the population that these kind of societal demographic ramifications are inevitable. And very unfortunately, we're looking at a very rough upcoming, back half of this decade, right? When all this shit is just coming apart, until the world can fucking get its act together and figure out to start adopting BCH in the hundreds of millions of people. It's the way out. But when are people it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah. I saw a thing, and I didn't fact check this at all, so I might be talking out someone else's ass right now. But I saw a thing that was like, people are terrified of the population decline, but it's essentially just a byproduct of eradicating teenage pregnancy, which we have pretty well done over the past 20 years.
Okay. Really? That can't be just it.
Well, no, I don't.
Having babies later. It's not just teenage like people still would have babies in their early 20s, but now it's like the average age of marriage has gone up. The average age of having a first kid, I'm sure, has gone up too. It's not just teen pregnancies, although that's probably a significant factor. Anyway, I don't know. This is a bit off topic, but the geopolitics of the show. Maybe we should ask a listener survey question about that. We've covered some of that tangentially on the show over the years. I think the coronavirus stuff we touched on. We didn't go too hard on it, but I think our position was pretty clear. The Canadian trucker protests, occasionally politics in different countries, especially like Argentina and all that, US politics here and there. No comments about that. Nobody saying, look, we need more of that. And nobody saying, look, we need less of that in the comments either. I wonder whether people enjoy hearing our thoughts on that, or they think stick to the crypto and you're not geopolitical pundits.
Yeah, it's definitely a fine line to dance around too, right? One wrong sentence in politics and all of a sudden you're viral on Twitter and everyone's calling you some awful name, right?
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, that's pretty much, I think, what we've got for the show. I agree with you. Everybody's doing a great job. Things are kind of quiet. Keep your head down, keep working, and we're probably one stage away from really starting like winning in the public eye. We've been winning for a while, like I've been saying on this show, but it hasn't been publicly acknowledged. But we're getting there. Just it's at the cone of silence is fracturing at the edges. There's nothing else in the chamber. There's no other argument that's gonna. If there was, we would have seen it yet. It's not coming. The only thing is going to be we keep making a big enough impact, a bigger and bigger impact, until eventually just everybody has to capitulate. As we're seeing, e.g. with Vlad Kosti that I talked about before. Okay, supporter appreciation. Thank you to our donators. Thank you to our patrons, Ricky and HB. Thank you to our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out BCHbull.com. Go to FundMe.Cash and get us over the line for that, please, so that I don't have to shout it out on the start of the next episode. Our existing donators, Majamalo Marcelo, 2024.bcharg.com, Molecular, Erdogan Talk, Peter Willey. I think the goal should be and can realistically be everyone simultaneously having on-chain funds. Emergent Reasons, stay grounded, stay awesome, P2P, electronic cash for the world. Cash Stamps, biggest soundboard for BCH we have. Keep up the great job, guys. Yeah, beer. Try to get Vlad Kosti on one of these next episodes. Would be a great discussion as he's opening up. We already talked about that. And Big V and the Bitcoin Cash Tokyo gang. Bitcoin Cash Tokyo weekly meetup session community http://bitcoincash.tokyo. Note that that's http. There's no HTTPS for that. I believe it might not work. bitcoincash.tokyo. All right. Start guide, FAQ, and links are at Bitcoin Cash Podcast. Got the bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you're new, listen to episode 85. Try Selene Wallet, Selene.cash. Final shout outs, Jet?
Everyone that I met last night. There were so many people, and congratulations to Aaron and Mason for their marriage.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, and my shout out goes to Jason Dreisner, who will be having back on the show to talk about the Big In stuff. He has been putting in mega work. Also, everyone else involved in that. I know Callan's been doing stuff. Dagger, I believe, was doing some stuff. Bitcoin Cash Audist. And we'll be hearing a bunch more from them just before this whole Big Ints and VM Limit stuff kind of is coming to a bit of a crescendo. And anybody who hasn't, including myself, or somewhat myself, take the time to go and dig into what they've been cooking away there, because, you know, I would really like to be confident that we can get this out this year, because 12 months is a long time. That's a lot of lost opportunity cost. Whereas if we can ship it and be confident in it, then by this time next year, we'll be on to the next greatest and latest thing. And who knows how much good will come out of this chip. This is not like ABLA, which was a future-proofing kind of thing. And if it had been a year later or whatever, the real difference would have been not so much. This is impacting and roadblocking people from building stuff right now. So if we can get that out of the way as fast as possible, it'll make a big difference, I think. So yeah, check in on Bitcoin Cash research and read up on the latest. All right. Thank you also to everyone who filled out the survey, and thank you all for listening. Till next time.
Reports that more than 500,000 Iraqi children have died as a direct result of U.S. sanctions. It's not just theoretical. These are real people with real lives. 500,000 kids? I'm sorry for shouting, but it just disgusts me what these people in government do. And they do it through central banking and through the control of the money supply, and Bitcoin takes that away from them.
This is the sound of freedom coming out your speakers. How they playing hide and seek or finders keepers. Let me define my thesis. While they treasonous deep in the malfeasance, a grand deception, 1,000 reasons, keeping the truth out of our reach. The powers that be, no morale for peace, just war when there's mouths to feed, covering mouths when they're trying to breathe. The silence that speaks volumes, now the blind can see. They lie and deceive, divide and conquer minds when they try to perceive what's behind the curtains that eyes can't see. Incentivized greed, desensitized breeds, gentrified streets, keeping money centralized leads to total control, to keep a hold of your soul, so you don't own but you owe. On the verge of homeless and thrown in a hole. They really think it's all a game. I can only console and say they rated so